Let's move to discuss market figures now. A lot is happening at the market. Results are coming in here and there from financial institutions, and we are going to be breaking that down today. We've done previously of other banks. Today we will stay with Fidelity. Now I have Mr. Mukhtar Mohammed live in the studio. He's a Finance with Mukhtar, stockbroker and all of that. You know, I've been looking at all of these results, and I think that, you know, something is really playing out. Let's look at the Fidelity. I said, an audited full year of 2025 results, there's a stronger performance with regards to all of these banks, despite all the challenges.
Well, you have to give it to the regulatory team for what they've been able to do in terms of monitoring those banks and the strong numbers those banks have been able to bring out in this fragile economy. You need to say the banks have been very innovative and resilient in what they've been able to achieve. So for me, I'm not too surprised with the kind of numbers we are seeing from the banks. It's expected if you look at FX stability, macroeconomic stability before we started going to this challenge that we had in terms of inflation. So we are looking at last year numbers. And if you generally look at the banks, we are beginning to see how they've been even struggling in terms of expensive and through the years coming back because of the macroeconomic challenge. But they have weathered the storm, and again, we are hopefully going to see a bigger, better bank. Don't forget that recapitalization has come and gone. So there's more liquidity in the banking sector now.
But this results as published at the Nigerian Exchange portal that I saw signals growth in gross earnings, core interest income, and non-interest income, and of course, stronger customer funding.
You see, the beauty about banking is when you make your result from your core area. So what is the core area of banking? The core area in banking is one, net interest income, lending, advancement, and your lending advancement and your investment in securities. Now, if you look at that Fidelity Bank result, you see that is what they've been able to achieve. Their core banking area, you've seen the positivity in all those areas. You see big growth in terms of percentage in those areas that they've been able to perform in their core banking area. And the beauty about it, again, you see their lending also has improved.
Yes.
Lending to the real sector. Fidelity Bank is one of the best banks when it comes to SME, smaller business. And you know, like we keep saying, the life wire of the Nigerian economy is actually the smaller business. So you could see that in the balance sheet. If you look at their balance sheet, you look at their assets and buy their lending. Their lending rate via their assets, about 41% of their asset is what they have given out as loan, which is fantastic. But what people are not even also looking at, again, in that Fidelity result, you are looking at the liquidity ratio of the bank, which also have improved by 18%. That is huge. You know, when we talk cash is king. So what it means that they have more cash in their hands to be able to lend. But then impairment charges, which has been one of the huge challenges of banks, in the Fidelity banks when it came down by 63%. And what does that imply? And that also helped their bottom line in terms of their gross earnings. What it means that their risk department are able to borrow and also be able to recover even after making provision for it. So that tells you a bank that is solid, that is borrowing to sectors that are also key drivers in the Nigerian economy. And again, shareholder fund also have increased also by 21%. And so that also is a good pointer. Customer deposit also has improved by about 16%. That tells you that a lot of customers believe in the brand, so they are still banking with them. So when you see the confident level of your customers on that, and what that will translate going further is in net interest commission. And what they've done also, they have improved their digital channels, which most likely is what is attracting more customers, and they will also earn a lot of income from that space.
Indeed, anything that has to do with online. I used to say, I can't remember the last time I entered the banking hall. So most of these banks are really trying to enhance their...
So when you look at the balance sheet also, it will tell the bank that are really working towards enhancing of their digital platforms. And that is what you are seeing in the Fidelity Bank results.
You know, you just talked about the total assets grew, of course, deposit increased and all of that. But moving forward, there's this consistent revenue growth. What do you think moving forward, or what would you expect from that kind of bank moving forward?
Consistent revenue growth, you've just said it. And so what it means is they've been consistent in their revenue growth over the years. And again, they lend to the real sector. And
it's very important.
Yeah, they lend to the real sector. If you look at their balance sheet, even if you look at their impairment charges, they are not so much exposed to the oil and gas sector like what we see in major Nigerian banks. So what we have seen there, that is why I say that the impairment charges came back by 62%. And that means that the last provision, they were able to recover and then brought it into the balance sheet, which is key. So I think with that, that's why you continue to see consistent growth. Because again, you are lending to the real, and I said they are one of the best brands when it comes to SMEs. Now, they are not just in terms of empowering SMEs. They also have a training academy for SMEs. So they don't just empower you to grow your business by giving you facility. They also make sure that facility is judiciously used and then able to pay back to them. And that's why you are seeing it in their balance sheet. So consistency, I think they have been consistent over the years. And since the new managing director came in, she has done a brilliant job in terms of lifting Fidelity Bank. At that time, it was more or less like what we call a penny stock at 88 kobo to a height. At the beginning of the year, they started at 19 naira. And if you look at that where they are today, the share price have grown by 15.3%, so which is huge.
That's really remarkable. You know, I just talked about the achievements, and of course, women in power again. That's a woman.
They are doing whatever. I mean, the women in the banking sector. When you look at Fidelity, you see what she has done. Then you go to Zenith Bank, you see what they are doing. So definitely, it seems to be that the women just know how to drive this financial sector. And in the area of recovery of loans,
a lot of work for the men in that industry. Honestly, a lot of work, man. That's really a challenge. But at least it's good to continue to see pretty figures like this and showing the stability of our banking system, particularly following this recapitalization, which you first identified, and as we expect. But many would always say that this fund should be released for the real sector players.
And that's what Fidelity is doing. And that's what, Tolu, the bank is in a challenging environment. If you look at the results of most of the banks, you see that most of their income was grown through investment in securities and others. But when you look at Fidelity Bank, yes, they did some growth in their income statement, I mean, investment in security. But if you look at that via advancement of loans, in terms of advancement giving of loans, realize that they gave more, about 4.2 trillion. It's what they actually give out as loan to a lot of businesses, more than what they are also investing in security. So they are really stationing on their core business, yes, despite the fragility of the Nigerian economy. Because the whole idea is that as a bank, you don't just have to loan because you have to lend, you have to do it. You also have to look at the fragility of the economy because, again, your shareholders are waiting for you to give them good returns.
Well, let's look generally at market performance today. Now, trading is still on till 4 p.m.
Yes.
So, you know, it's not that time where we used to have the figures right around now and then. What do you make of the performance of the market you've seen in recent times?
Midday trading has been quite a little bit positive. I mean, at the time I left, and we are still seeing in terms of movement in those high cap stocks. We are not seeing large movement. At the time I left, I think GTCO was a little bit down about from a height of 153. But you could see that a bank like Zenith also is making inward into those high price of 135 naira.
Wow, so, per unit?
Per unit. So we are seeing those movement. RDL is still there moving, a separate of this war. So we are seeing a lot of movement in the banking sector. And this is largely driven by policy statement, especially the policy statement that has to do with the recapitalization of the banking sector. And also, don't forget, we keep talking about the recapitalization of the banking sector. We've forgotten that there's a recapitalization also going on in the insurance sector.
Yeah,
that also
that's true.
They will also have to look at the policy whereby pension fund administrators are now some of the major players in the equity market due to the reform by the current administration. So they're also driving a lot of liquidity into the market. So those prices are still going where they are. And so then again, some people say, oh, with this price, does it look like the banks are overpriced or the stocks are going to overbought level? I don't think so personally, but if you look at the PE ratios of some of these stocks, they are still single digits, exception for some few. And when you look at globally, you look at the global economy, and then you want to look at the oil and gas sector in Nigeria, where you have two key players driving that sector, Aradel and Seplat. And when you look at the price...
They're local players.
They're local players, but when you look at the price, you keep to saying, why? Then, but you've forgotten that Seplat bought Mobi assets, which make them a big-time player. And then Aradel, through Renaissance Capital, bought about 90% hold in Shell assets. That's also a big place in the market. Then when you look at it globally, you look at Mobi, you look at Shell, you look at the big results they just released, 2 days ago. The global Shell.
I saw that result. I reported it.
So that tells you why you see some of these stocks are going up, because definitely the current crisis has played into the oil and gas sector positive. So definitely, I'm not surprised what we are seeing in the market. The financial sector, like we say, is the key driver of the Nigerian market in terms of liquidity, and then that regulatory framework that a lot of Nigerians has now begin to believe that when the bank tells you we'll make 1 point something, exactly what they made.
Mr. Mohammed, thank you so much. It's always good to have you. I like this face of state analysis. I think it makes more sense. Thank you so much for your time, as always.
You buy me fuel.